Graham Hunter is with us. Hello, Graham.
Buenos dias, Owen.
How are you keeping? This is quite the news, quite the twist. If you wanted to add a bit of spice to a Premier League season, you get Jose Mourinho right back in there, and that's exactly what Spurs are doing.
I find it interesting, Owen. Look, it's no news to anybody who listens to your show, watches your show. It's no news to you or Ger that, I've found lots of reasons to be sometimes constructively critical and often simply critical of Jose Mourinho's latter day apparitions. And therefore, I find it really interesting that he's in tandem with Levy, because for a long time, Levy has done things that are truly extraordinary at Spurs. I've lived through times when a stadium project, never mind a stadium and training ground project, I've nearly ruined clubs. Leeds and Chelsea are two examples. Each of whom very nearly went to the wall principally because of stadium costs spiralling. And therefore, what Levy's achieved, and I think that now that Pochettino's gone, if we reckon back to the day that he signed him from Southampton, and think about how few people said, that's brilliant business. That's extraordinarily perceptive to take the Southampton manager. And it has proven to be. But for quite a long time, Levy has been the check and balance is in the wrong proportion, because he has to win every argument over the summer or the winter in the market. He has to win every argument with his coach about what to spend, when to spend it, upon whom, who to renew, what size of contract will keep his current squad, his key current players, not only there, but happy, incentivised. There are several players at Spurs who for many, 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 many months have known that their equivalents, or players who are not as good as them, or haven't achieved as much as them, are earning 3 times as much as them. So what Levy's managed to produce is the what do they call it in television now, showrunner. He's the showrunner of this series, isn't he? And I would argue that for quite some time, his need to squeeze every last, not only every last penny, but every last drop of blood out of every single deal has been the thing that was beginning to hold Spurs back from proper triumphs. It's not the only thing, but it's a key strategic organisational flaw that, if corrected, leaves Tottenham Hotspur in an extraordinary position. Now, you merge that with, it's like the first guy who ever said, let's see what vodka and tomato juice with a bit of, pepper sauce in it and salt tastes like. Because, not the original Mourinho, because we're not going to get that, but Mourinho at his best adds the ruthless determination, whether it's for his own CV, for his own ego, for his own salary, the ruthless determination to win above anything else is something that will be very interesting to be mixed into that environment. And let's see, for my taste, let's see whether Levy can change an inch or two, and let's see whether we see a Mourinho who's slightly more energised. He looks younger, slimmer, fitter. On television. He looks as if the sabbatical hasn't dragged, that he's used it well. It feels a little bit like the Mourinho pre that horrible second spell at Chelsea and the dog days at Manchester United. Does that mean that all his powers are back again? I wouldn't like to proclaim that. But if you don't mind, Owen, and stop me if you do mind, I in all the flurry of Pochettino might go, now he's gone, Mourinho's in, I think that there's been too little said about, irrespective of him being nowhere near Bill Nicholson in achievements, irrespective of the fact that he didn't lift a trophy, at a time when Levy was constructing what's genuinely understood to be one of the top 2 or 3, some people say the best, training ground in Europe, plus a stadium to be not only proud of, but genuinely excited by, 2 platforms that can definitely help catapult Spurs into the winning elite, not just the elite of Europe where they've sat now for a while. Pochettino's contribution has been tremendous. People talk about his coaching, his moodiness. I know certain players felt run off their feet by him. But I've got my notes here. In 16-17 in the Champions League, his work earned Spurs 43 million. The next year, 61 million. The figures for 18-19 aren't out, but I'll be surprised if they're not 85 million. From Champions League participation alone, something that was a holy grail for Spurs, Pochettino's efforts have earned gross Spurs 190 million over the last 3 seasons. And right now, today, 3 more goals scored, 3 domestically, would have left them having beaten Manchester City, won the North London derby at Arsenal, drawn with Liverpool. They'd be 5th, and they'd be 6 points off a Champions League place. That's a very small margin, Owen. The fact that it was a bit burned out between Levy and Pochettino, and the fact that it still may be correct that Pochettino moves on because Levy's not moving on and Levy refuses to refresh the squad properly, leaves this as a slightly unfortunate accident that there was time to preview and time to understand was coming. But boy, Pochettino's legacy isn't simply they played in the Champions League final and gosh, weren't his teams nice to watch sometimes. He's been a fundamental part of the engine which has rebuilt Spurs. Well, I think that's quite special. And right, I'll shut up now. Mourinho's taking over something that, by my own definition, isn't in too bad nick.
Yeah, there's a lot in that. There's a lot that I'd agree with. The idea of it being more than just a Champions League final, I would agree with that. But then it's also more than just their potential table position this year as well. There is the potential of how the players are feeling, how many players will they lose in January or next summer as a result of how they're feeling, as a result of perhaps Pochettino's methods and perhaps wearing thin with the players and the relationship.
All right, Owen, but throw into that mix, throw into that painting that you're putting up, the idea of the players not only being maybe a little bit tired of the boss, maybe a little bit run off their feet, and some do feel that. Pochettino absolutely knew that was coming down the line and needed renewing, and he didn't get the correct type of help from Levy. And I'm not being ultra critical of Levy here, and I'm not taking sides. But if your show stands for reasoned, balanced, in-depth analysis, Levy could have ensured that the situation you're describing didn't occur. Not only by more prompt, more intelligent buying and selling, but by telling certain players, I understand that you and Pochettino have helped me build this stadium and the training ground with your efforts, while underpaid is a phrase that maybe people are, spitting into their porridge right now at home as they watch you, but by the standards of counterparts in the Premier League and around Europe, but in the Premier League, and counterparts aren't as good as them. If you know that somebody who you don't think is your equal is earning 3 times what you're earning, sooner or later that will burn away at your ability to render your absolute top, and it will bring Spurs to the situation they're in and that you were describing. Do you know what I mean?
And it makes this very potentially violent cocktail for Jose Mourinho and co. If this, we know for sure, Graham, this thing is going to end in disaster. It just depends on how long the honeymoon period lasts.
You said that with too much glee.
We're out of time here, Graham. One word answer, one team answer. Where is Mauricio Pochettino going to end up in your view?
Nowhere until next summer, okay. And next summer it will depend on how Solskjaer and Zidane have done, because those are the 2 clubs that he covets most.
Very good. Graham Hunter, thanks a million.
Cheers, dude.